an invitation has been turned out.
She needs to check out Wednesday.
Yeah, before, yeah.
She actually called me on Wednesday.
Ask her.
You have things for the children?
Yeah, I do.
I didn't. I was watching Alabama football.
What do you do with
No
the
baseball
containers,
yet.
Russell? The small containers for the children?
I'm sorry.
The small containers for the children, what do you do with them?
I put them. I guess I put them out front. Where they got that back in the back.
We'll get them.
Either way,
I'll get
I should have put mine in there and I just forgot I had it in my hand.
them.
Okay,
We'd see that those on.
you're fine.
Did you hit live on that already?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting here just looking at my phone, live on the internet. All right.
And 3, 2.
You've had mail.
I apologize. Just give me 1 minute here.
Yeah, when you have mail, you gotta check it.
I should have checked it.
That's good. I'm just trying to get the link out there for everybody on Facebook to be able to watch. I've been trying to post it before the service as well.
Oh, nice. Cool.
You see, he's working on technology.
Yeah, I know. It's great. Do you have access to the church?
I don't. I was going to ask you about that today. See if I could get if you can add me as an admin on
I'd be
there.
happy to.
Get back to this.
You better watch. He's looking good in that preacher suit he's got on. I may want to take over.
Oh no, that's too much responsibility.
Way to go, Russ. And that's what I get for having a size 12.5 feet.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
All right. So here we are again on part 3 of Faith and Technology. I was just going to do 3 parts, but then Aaron said, "I think you got enough to do 4 parts." So next week we got another part. This week we are entering into the internet, and I know that's been anticipated for a little while. Hopefully, I surprised you a little bit with the first couple lessons, not really going into the modern technology, but there's not much left now except for the modern stuff. But today is just going to be the internet. It's actually going to be the internet in its earliest form, not necessarily the modern internet with the social media and everything. That's going to be next week along with the mobile devices and such. So, but first off, let's go and review last week, the last couple of weeks actually. We have the first week we went over the really early technology, the wheel, the printing press. Last week we went into radio and TV. Any questions, comments, or anything about the last couple of lessons?
You don't know anything about thermostats in houses, do you? Electronics. It's great. You load it, you won't do it, but you had to do it with a computer. Now it's a blank screen back for 3 years.
And then we don't have any air.
I'm going to call the train people tomorrow. Figure out how come.
It may just be
One
a
of those kind of
bad
operate
thermostat.
everything in your house if you wanted to.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do is cool the house.
I have brought up this stuff in probably 2 or 3 conversations this week, specifically the radio and TV stuff and how well or how poorly we as the church have adopted those technologies.
Yeah, and it's
surprising.
It was very surprising to me how many people were actually reached with the radio and how many people are still being reached with the radio. And I had no idea initially that the radio is still being used to reach areas where any religion is outlawed. So it's amazing that we can still use that today. We've got today the internet. I didn't do my individual bullet points this time because it messed up last time, but that'll be all right. So initially, the internet was conceived by Nikola Tesla in the early 1900s. He actually had the idea of being able to transmit information via, and he didn't have the right words, but he essentially was thinking of tablets and phones and other devices that would allow you to transmit information between people, not necessarily just the radio, because he did theorize on the radio waves and everything as well, but he had this whole idea of being able to write data to physical devices, and those devices could be moved around via a wireless connection. And he actually conceived it as a universal network of things.
Is he the grandfather of the Tesla we know?
I hope not.
I don't know.
The electric car.
The electric car company is named after him.
Yeah, named after.
But he has a lot of things that there's like some History Channel stuff on him.
Yeah. Paul Ollitt and Vanner Bush, they theorized about mechanized searchable storage systems in the 1930s and 1940s. So hard drives that's in your computer, that's essentially what they theorized about, flash drives and those kinds of things. And in the 1960s, MIT's J.R.C. Litter, something, that guy there, he popularized the idea of interactive network of computers. And by the 1960s, ARPANET was created. And ARPANET was one of the first, it was funded by the Department of Defense. It stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. And it was one of the first iterations of the internet allowing multiple computers to communicate with each other. And by 1990, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. Now, the World Wide Web, a lot of times people think of that as the same as the internet, but it's actually two different things. The internet contains all of the information and has the protocols allow the computers to communicate to each other, to the servers and routing and all that stuff. The World Wide Web is actually the method in which you actually see it. So your browsers are viewing the World Wide Web, which then connects to the internet and then brings the information. So two different things. And I didn't know that. They didn't teach me that when I was going to school for web design. I just found that out when I was researching this. So it is actually two levels of the internet. One being the information part and the protocols to communicate, and the other one being essentially the translator that puts it into so that we can actually see it. And of course,
I just want to know how we lived without it.
I was going to say, 1990 is not that long ago.
Yeah. Now I was born in '87, so I was already on computers by the time I was 6 or so. But I do remember early on some of the internet websites I went to. It was just text. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of fancy design around it or anything like that. It was just text. And now we've got HTML, PHP, all kinds of other languages that are used to build websites. Yes.
Okay, what does a server do?
The server is the container of the information. And so if another computer hits that server and is requesting something specifically, that server finds that information and displays it back to that computer that made the request. The server generally it can be just considered the controller of whatever. So every website that you go to most likely is on its own individual server. Some are just virtual servers, so there's one server that has multiple virtual servers running off of it, so they all have their individual pieces. So if one breaks, all the others are still working just fine. Yeah, redundancy. And so it's basically the controller and the container for the information that is supposed to be there.
We used to call dictionaries and encyclopedias and libraries.
Yeah,
that the information's contained.
Yeah, that'd be a good parallel to that. It's in anything that you got that you want to go to and find information at. The server and the internet just makes it a little bit easier to find information than flipping through a book.
Okay, follow-up question: what is the cloud?
The cloud. Okay.
He could have a whole technology class.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was kind of the intent for today. So let me do this. We'll get back to that question because I did not find as much information as I wanted to on the religion and the internet. So my intent today was I got one more slide, just one more, and then after that I want to get into that discussion and any questions whether it's directly related to this or not, and I'll do my best to explain everything. And something I don't have up here actually, in 1971, so just before or in between ARPANET and 1990 when the World Wide Web was a popular thing, Ray Tomlinson sent the first email in 1971. It's kind of funny though. It was a personal message from himself to himself. He sent it from this computer here, and it came into this computer right here, sitting next to him. But it did actually go out and traverse the internet through ARPANET before it came back to that computer. So that was an interesting, about one of the only firsts that I could track down for the internet. Now, here's an interesting fact. The actual, right now, internet and regarding the churches, 73% of Americans use the internet right now. Of those, within just the church community, 80 to 90% of pastors use the internet. And they're using it in many different forms. We got blogs, email letters, email newsletters. And those are, a lot of times that's going to be the first impression anybody sees of your church nowadays. 90% of the people that are going to go and find a new church, the first thing they're going to do is look that church up on the internet. And so your website becomes that very first impression of your church. And hopefully the website is welcoming and it's going to bring the people, encourage people to come on into the church.
Did you design ours?
I did.
That webpage?
Yes. With input from Aaron, I did the HTML work on it. Now he runs the blog and everything on our website.
Which is why I haven't been updated for a while.
No, you're getting the blog out there quite often. It's good. And of course, if you go and look for a website that has the Bible on there, so you can look through the Bible on the internet, find things a little bit quicker, other references. There are thousands and thousands of websites out there with that kind of information. I use the Schofield Bible, KJV, and a lot of times just going through the physical Bible, it's hard for me to read the notations, the Schofield notations, and everything. But I can get to the website and I'm looking for this particular type of topic. Then I can find all kinds of information that Schofield wrote and other. I don't know the exact name of it. You'll probably know what I'm talking about here. When you got people like Schofield who've written their own thing, what was that called?
In that school of thought or something.
Yeah, but there's hundreds of them out there. So the internet has given us that ability to even further put the word out there. And if we're reaching 73% of Americans, probably 73 to 80% of the world with the internet, we're actually reaching more than the TV does or the radio does, because most everybody's walking around nowadays with something that has the internet on there. So that is the extent of the information I was able to find. And again, this is one of those weird situations where the internet has documented the history of the TV and the radio better than it's documented its own history, at least in regards to how religion has used the internet up to this point. So we'll go back to your question, the cloud. And the cloud can actually is something that the church can use as well. We are using it with the Right Now Media. The Right Now Media is technically in the cloud. So the cloud is nothing more than another server somewhere. But it's been designated, instead of being used to render a website, it's used to just store data, usually for individual people. There's a program called Dropbox. And with Dropbox, you have the ability to take files or something from your computer, put it into a folder that's called Dropbox once you install the application on your computer, and then it syncs that up to the cloud. And that particular cloud is a server at Dropbox's headquarters or their server farm or wherever, that then you can log into Dropbox on your phone or tablet or another computer, and it syncs it back down for you. The cloud has become one of the primary means of backing up data nowadays. My entire computer is backed up to Dropbox, and Dropbox themselves, they also back up their data. So if they have one server go down, they have another one that can just jump right in, and minimal loss of data. So the cloud is just it's a single repository of things, but there's different providers of different clouds out there.
So it frees up space on your computer.
Dropbox actually, it can if you configure it correctly, but the base install, it keeps it on your computer and in the cloud. And then, I go in there, Sandra and I have one, and there's a folder for her, there's a folder for me, and I've set mine up on my computer to only sync my folder, and hers only syncs her folder. That way, and then what's in the cloud is actually a larger size than what's on her two individual computers, unless you put them together, then it's the same. So it's, that one does not now. Google has their own version of the cloud that does free up space on your computer, but then you're also got, with both of them, you got a limit of how much you can actually store in the cloud with their services.
That's my question. For weeks, iCloud storage is full.
Uh-huh.
Photos, videos, and iCloud Drive are no longer updating. Okay, so every time I take a picture, it goes to the cloud. I don't need it in the cloud.
Yeah, that's something you can actually turn off. Apple's iCloud is probably one of the, in my opinion, one of the worst cloud systems there is. Not that they're not doing it right, it's just, it's expensive. And
oh, they want me to update it.
yeah.
Storage.
That's something later on I can take a look at and we can just turn that off. And then as long as you hook your computer into, or your phone into your computer on occasion and back it up there, then that'd be how I would back up the iPhone.
I've never done that. But I have Google Photos. So my photos automatically go to that.
Yeah, then they'll be fine. You don't have to worry about hooking it up to the computer then.
But how do you get them off of Google Photos?
You got too many of you grandchildren.
No, I do not.
So,
would you like to see them?
No, I see some of them.
Depending on what you're wanting to do with it, as long as you got the Google Photos app on your phone, you don't really need to pull them off of Google Photos. Unless you're wanting to put them somewhere else.
Can you print them from Google Photos?
Yeah. You can actually go to your computer. You can go on your computer and go to, I don't remember the URL, but if you just Google Photos and go to the Google Photos website, you can log in there and you can do whatever you want to with them there. It's like having an online album.
Well, I want to turn my iCloud off.
Okay.
Yeah.
After service, get with me.
David, I work
You got a problem.
on the university.
Yeah.
We call it a platform. It's called Lab Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So how is a platform different from a storage unit?
It's not.
It's the same sort of thing?
It's the same thing. It's just the terminology. I'll use the term platform all the time when I'm talking with my boss or my coworkers. The majority, so the platform that our website at the church is built on is WordPress. The platform is nothing more than a term that is going to reference the base code for whatever you're doing. So it can be used between website base code or cloud base code or some other application base code.
In our platform, we also have a Dropbox. So
Your appointment's right after her.
I don't need a consultation.
I do.
Take 2 aspirin and call him.
So yeah, I mean, the platform is just going to reference. It's not really anything more than think of it as an actual platform. We've got the platform out the auditorium where you stand on the platform, and that's nothing. It's just referencing something that you stand on. So the platform that any of these applications or anything are built on is just that. It's some kind of base information or base code that they build upon.
Something that I was talking with some folks about this week, after I referenced the radio and the TV stuff, is what's fascinating, I think, and maybe this is getting into next week's, but about our kind of internet economy-ish, that anyone can do a blog, anyone can do a website, anyone can do, there's the access to this stuff. When a church wanted to broadcast on television, how much, very, very expensive equipment and all of that sort of stuff, and how getting onto a channel and all the, there's a lot of what they call doorkeepers and that sort of stuff. Whereas now, upside and downside is you can just type up whatever and it can go out there. And
that's goes or ties right into why most of your TV churches are mega churches, because they've got the money to go and get all the equipment and get on the TV channels. And you're right about the internet; anybody can do it, and that does bring up the risks of the internet as well, because anybody, not just churches, anybody can go out there and do it. So on the internet, you have all kinds of stuff that's good, all kinds of stuff that's bad. You've also got all kinds of stuff that is illegal. And because what we consider bad, the world's not necessarily going to consider bad. But then you do have the illegal stuff too. So you got to watch out for how you use the internet. It comes back to that same scenario we had with well, the one website I was reading from last week, how they, just was completely bashing TV. Well, the truth is, the internet, the very thing they were using to bash the TV with, has all the same stuff that they were complaining about on the TV. A little hypocritical, in my opinion, to use one platform. Here we go. Using a platform to badger another platform that has all the same stuff available, if not more than the platform you're using. Actually, it does have more than the TV does. So that's something that all churches all individuals just got to be aware of. And there's actually, and now that I have a child, I will be looking into this even more than I have. There are programs you can install on your computers, on your phones, and everything that's going to lock down where you can go. And I've known some people that they like, the temptation is too much for me, so they either get rid of their internet or they have their significant other install that program and put the password on it so they can't override it. So I mean, there are ways without just completely cutting yourself off and still making the good parts of the internet available to yourself and blocking yourself from the bad stuff.
Well, I think some of the religious websites have really helped the masses find out stuff. I mean, if you don't go to church, you can sit there and I think it's Bible Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
You can have any version of the Bible you want. I mean, you can pick your version, and it has all the books of the Bible, and you can look up any scripture there and everything.
Yep.
Of course, there again, things are used the right way.
Yeah. That is the key part, using everything correctly.
The question
And
is, hear these ads on television about the dark web.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the criminal side you're speaking of?
Yep, it is. So when I was in college, I actually did a report on the dark web, and it's very difficult to get to it. It is still possible to run across illegal things without being on the dark web, but the dark web, once you get to the dark web, just about everything you're going to see there is illegal content. It's going to be drug deals, illegal weapons, slave trading, human trafficking. I guess that's kind of the same thing, but and then there's also illegal child pornography and everything on there as well. Just everything that can be digitized that's illegal is there, and connecting with anybody that conducts illegal business is there, and it's a dark side of the internet. 90% of the internet is the dark web.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, about roughly. I mean, that's That's when I did the report at that point in time, which was 6 years ago. Not 7 years ago. About 90% of the internet is the dark web. There's an infographic that shows. Let me see if I can find it real quick. That gives a idea of that.
While you're answering that, is that so? Is the dark web a separate platform, or is it a different thing from the World Wide Web, or is it kind of intertwined?
See what Star Wars calls it.
Yeah.
Here we go. So, yes and no. The dark web, without giving away too much of how to get there, because I don't want to put that out on YouTube. Because I could get to the dark web like that nowadays. You have to use a special type of browser, and if you really want to go there and everything, you've got to use a method to hide your IP address as well. And the first page you're going to see on the dark web it's going to look like a wiki page. Everybody know about what Wikipedia is? Yeah. So the very first page of the dark web is a Wikipedia page, and then it has everything categorized out with links to all these other pages. So it is part of the internet still, and then these pages are using the World Wide Web protocol to present their information. But it's just they've turned off searchability. So Google search, Bing search, Yahoo search, all the other search engines with their website crawlers cannot see these. Excuse me.
But certainly police and FBI and all those people can get to the dark web as well.
Yeah, they can.
So the people who are trying to transact business they're doing it in front of people who can arrest them.
Yes and no.
Oops.
Yes and no.
I was seeing if I can.
Do internet dark web graphic and then switch over to images and use any one of those is fine.
Well, David, how safe is online banking? Because I do online.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I do it all the time too.
Because it says it has a little lock up there,
Mhm.
which means it's secure, and
Yeah.
I don't do it from my computer. I do it either from my phone or my
Well,
iPad.
do it from your computer too. It's fine. Internet banking that's unless you're on a public Wi-Fi network,
Is that one good?
you're fine. No, not that one. Scroll up. Do internet banking. Dark. Yeah, internet banking. As far as your security, if you're going to do anything that's going to transacting passwords or bank account numbers or anything like that, and click on that third one there.
Third one?
Yep. Make sure you do that from your home internet. Don't go or home internet or your mobile devices, 3G or 4G. Don't connect to a public Wi-Fi. I can install a sniffer program on my phone, connect to the Wi-Fi at McDonald's, and watch every single piece of information that's transmitted. Every single piece. Passwords, usernames, website addresses, all of it.
Oops, that's there.
There you go. All right, so this is a simple graphic of the internet. So 90% of the internet is deep or dark web. So the World Wide Web, this is what we're used to at the top here. So this is all your bank websites, church websites, all that stuff. And then the deep web, service web. So that's where we start seeing stuff that the Google search and everything cannot see. They can't find it. Now it's not necessarily dark web areas, but they're just they're barely removed. Now technically, a couple of websites that I run would fall into the deep web because I've turned them off from being able to be searched just because they're in development. I don't want them to be seen yet. And so you can probably would find that there's a lot of development websites in the deep web or even some of your bank websites may potentially be in the deep web, the login parts of them, because they don't want to necessarily give out the login portal to everybody to see, just to their customers. So if you got something that's just a customer login type thing, that could fall into the deep web as well. Well, then when you get to the dark web, that's where the majority of your illegal things is going to be happening at. And that's, once you get to dark web, that's also where you have to have, if you just go there without having safety, taking some safety precautions, then you might get a knock on the door from the FBI. Now, back to your question about that. Yes, the FBI, cops, and everybody, they can get to it just as easy as anybody else. But because of the nature of the dark web and how they've turned off all the tracking and everything, they're not going to know who it is that's talking to each other. They have to take their best chance if they can get into these websites. That's another thing. Is a lot of the websites on the dark web have better security than the government.
Really?
So if they can get in there and see two people talking to each other, they got to figure out and interpret their code that they're using to maybe figure out, oh, they're going to meet up at this place at this time, so let's go and catch them while they're meeting there. But then again, with their, because they're bouncing between multiple locations, so the IP address, Internet Protocol, is everybody's computer, everybody's phone. Actually, not necessarily your computer, but your internet, your home has an IP address assigned to it.
Well, I have a question about how we're hearing a lot about political hacking and how you can't vote and be safe. Is that because of the dark web?
No, that's not directly related to the dark web. The dark web, really, unless you're actually going out trying to find illegal things, you don't have to worry about the dark web. The dark web is going to be, it's one of those you have to be looking for it to get it. And if you're looking for it to get it, then you're probably not coming to church. Most likely. And that's just the content that is there, unless, if you're somebody who's, been out there trying to get it and you're not, in the government trying to do, figure something out, or you're not doing research on it, then the moment you walk inside the church, your skin's probably going to start boiling. But the hacking, the potential Russian hacking, does not necessarily come out of the dark web. Now they're probably using computers and bouncing off different IP addresses to hide their actual location and where that's coming from, but that's not something that's unique to the dark web. And the computers they're trying to hack into really shouldn't be on the internet to begin with, but they're computers in the government buildings that has all the votes and everything logged, and they're just tunneling through the firewall and manipulating those. If they got through the firewall, and I don't know. I've not seen proof on that yet.
That was the whole issue with the Hillary Clinton server thing, right? Mm-hmm. That it was outside of those sort of governmental protection. Her
email server, she purchased one. I think it has some relation to GoDaddy. Don't quote me on that at all. But she went outside of the government security systems and had a private email server and had her government email go there. And because it was outside the government email servers, it was a lot easier to hack into. I have my own opinions about Benghazi and all that. We won't get into that. But yeah, that's
the issue there.
Yeah, the issue there is that the government has a pretty good security system as far as their internet computers go and everything. There are some mistakes that they make where they should not do it. Like computers that house the information on who got voted president really should not be connected to the internet and have that potential vulnerability to be hacked and have that information changed. That all that should be transferred on secure hard drives and flash drives and the chain of custody and all that, and never touch the internet. And anybody that is involved in the government, anything they do should be on a government secured computer. Otherwise, we end up with conspiracies and of multiple varieties. Any other questions?
What's a web crawler?
So a web crawler is
you.
Google implements web crawlers.
What?
Google implements web crawlers. Any search engine implements web crawlers, and it's basically a piece of code that's been designed to browse the internet, usually by IP address. So it just picks up IP addresses and starts going through them. And the IP addresses are set up to where there's the first few letters indicate this is a residential, a consumer IP address, or this is a business one. So if it's a residential one, the web crawlers ignore those because there's no websites can be hit from there or anything. And the others are your website IP addresses. So the web crawler is programmed to just start going through those and find them, and then it correlates that data, more than likely passes it off to another piece of code that then displays it for you after you've typed in your search. And they're very fast. They're actually 9 times out of 10 they're running constantly, not just when somebody's done a search, because they're out there gathering that data already, and then when you do your search, it's pulling from the information that's already been collected. Which is why most websites, when they go live, it takes them a few weeks before they're actually showing up on the Google search because they haven't been hit by the crawler yet.
Do you have any particular antivirus that you think is better than
Avast?
Pardon?
Avast. A-V-A-S-T.
Okay.
You just Google that and download their free version. And it's an active antivirus that will scan everything as it's being downloaded. So anything else you download will be scanned by it immediately. It will go and scan your computer as well once you get it installed. And if is any thing that it recognizes as a virus, it will let you know, and you can decide. Generally, you want to quarantine viruses. It will give you the option to either quarantine it or delete it. If you delete it, there's the potential that those viruses has tendrils in other programs, and parts of those programs will be deleted as well, and it could completely destroy the computer. So I always quarantine viruses. Now, I don't recommend anybody else do this, but I don't use any antivirus on my computer whatsoever. I use Malwarebytes, which is a manual run. I'll run that. Actually, I haven't run that in a long time. So at this point, I run it about once a year. It does the same thing for me in quarantines and everything. Now, my work computer, I got Avast on there. But on my personal computer, I know exactly where I'm going. I don't go to any website, don't download anything I don't trust. So I don't feel the need to have it. And when I do run malware, the reason I run Malwarebytes maybe once a year now is because every time I run it, I haven't found anything. So that's just because I've been dealing with computers and everything for the majority of my life.
Does that cost you anything, the malware?
No, they're both free. I won't pay for any of this stuff.
I was getting ready to say, how come I'm able to pay for it?
Are you using Norton?
No, I'm using malware.
McAfee and Kaspersky.
Okay. Yeah, McAfee, Kaspersky, Norton,
I used to use Kaspersky.
WebRoot are all paid versions of antivirus. But there have been, again, this is speculation by not just myself, but many other people out there in the industry, that they have actually created viruses themselves, sent them out, and then made people pay for the upgrade that will get rid of that virus.
Well, whatever I'm using comes back to me once a month to say how many viruses we found and how many were delayed.
What's the number it's giving you on how many viruses you've? You really shouldn't be getting that many.
Well, I don't usually get any, but occasionally I'll get 2 or 3.
I would, next week I'll bring in a list of things, and I'll have multiple copies to hand out. So
I have Spectrum, and they provide the security suite.
I had Spectrum when I was living in Charleston, and their security suite destroyed my computer.
Oh
my God.
So when I got the new computer, I didn't install.
Windows has a security.
Windows has their base Windows firewall and antivirus. I usually turn those off as well because they're always getting in the way.
With too much room? What do you mean getting in the way?
Anything I want to install, my computer games or new software that I need to use to build websites, it's like, don't trust this, or it looks like a virus type thing. No, it's not. And it's just, I turn it off. I am a super user, so I do turn off a lot of stuff that.
That's right, we don't.
But I'll bring in that list next week of antiviruses and other things you can use, and then once you get those installed, you can get rid of Kaspersky, McAfee, and all the other stuff, and whatever Spectrum's providing. When I was in Charleston, their internet suite or their security suite included Norton as well. Plus some other things. Now, anything they're running that's on their end of things is not going to affect you, because they do run some stuff on their servers that is basically where your internet traffic is going through. So that's not really going to affect you, aside from they're not going to let you go to a website that is nothing but viruses. But anything that say install this on your computer, I wouldn't. I would get either Avast or Malwarebytes.
Can you give us some clues as to when people are phishing? Because we're of the age that people love to scam us.
Basically, any email that comes to you that's not from somebody that you're already previously talking to in person or on the phone that is asking for money, it's a scam.
Oh, well. Can I see it before I get to that point?
Well, if it's in email, are you using a client that's on your computer, or are you going to the internet and then accessing your email? Both ways? Okay. If it's client on your computer, there's not a lot that we can do. Because then it's the client on the computer is actually downloading that email and is putting it on your hard drive. And once you open the email, if there's anything that is programmed to activate on email open, then it's there. If it's just an attachment to the email, then don't click the attachment. If you're on the internet, then it's always going to be an attachment, because it's not actually on your computer yet. You're looking at it through a window still. And those, I click on those. If they get past my spam filter, I'll click on it. I'll say, oh, this is somebody asking for money. It's the Prince of Persia.
Your friend is asking for money because she's on a trip.
And I actually got scammed one time.
Really?
And I was moving back up here from Charleston, and I was looking for a job. And I found an ad for, put a car wrap on your car, drive around, you get paid $500 a month for this. And the way they get set it up, they send you so much money via, what was the place? MoneyGram or something. And you got to you keep 500 of that, and you take the other 4,000 or whatever to the car place and pay them to put the wrap on. And shortly after the money was sent to my account, the money was there. It was real money as far as I knew. I found an article where this was a common scam. So I started talking with the guy and said, look, my bank says this is not actually going to clear until a certain day, so I'm going to wait until that day before I go and do this, because if I go and try and spend it before it's cleared, then I get hit hard. About 3 days later, the bank says, hey, that MoneyGram bounced. So I got charged $30 for that, which is a lot better than having gone and spent it and having to pay back the entire amount plus the $30. So that, I learned a lesson.
There's scams every minute, it seems like.
Well, how do they make money off that? If the money wasn't there anyway.
So, the way they would have made the money off that? It's money laundering. They send me the money. I keep 500. I send the other 4,000 via. Supposed to send it via check to somebody, and then take my car to get it wrapped. And that check then goes to somebody, and that check, they cash that check. They cash it. They don't put it in the bank or anything. They actually cash it. They don't have to wait on it to clear or anything like that. Then they've got that $4,000 in cash.
And you get no car wrap.
And I don't get a car wrap, and I get charged that $4,500 because it bounces. Plus, I get charged another $4,000 something because my check would then bounce. So I was very glad I found that article, and I waited.
Next week, you're going to get to what you wanted to talk about.
So next week we're going to go over a couple things on social media. We're going to look into. I did find one church that has, they started real small and now they're huge. They're all over the place. So we're going to look at analyze how they've used the internet to really help them grow. Not just the internet, social media, and everything else. And we'll touch a little bit on mobile devices and how they're a great tool that we can use as well.
Would you like us to bring our mobile devices?
Yeah.
You can if you want to. I think maybe next week I'll have to have a after service.
You're welcome to come to this class. It's $100 an hour.
I'm not. I don't deal in money.
We'll just have a certain number of slots.
Yeah. We'll start doing sign-up sheets, and two people after service every Sunday.
Pay me Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin. I invested in that too, and it's starting to drop again. Yeah. Anyway, we'll do. We're running out of time now. I started talking too much. We'll do questions about this, and we'll go over the new stuff next week. And who knows? Maybe we'll have to go for a fifth week if that's okay with Aaron and everybody else. But we'll go and wrap up for today. So let's pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for letting us all be able to come to church today to learn from your word and worship you. Please help us to recognize the abilities and the technology that we have available at our use, and to use them properly and not fall into the trap that is out there with much of everything in the world. Help us to learn from your word this morning in the service and go out into the world and spread the gospel. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We'll have a cardiovascular